Dad had a dream. He heard the name Alaska, mountains of Mastodons, Sabertooths, prehistoric buffaloes.
Someone like you who spent 70 years off grid end up in Alaska?
Dad had a dream. He heard the name Alaska. He grew up on a farm. And I forget, I've been sitting here trying to think of how many aunts and uncles I had. It was a big family. And back in those days, they only went to the 8th grade. But they had an education by the 8th grade.
Sure.
Nowadays, these college pricks don't have a 3rd grade education. Then the World War II come by. Dad got drafted, and he was Army Engineers, and he was over in the Philippines building the advanced wiggle airstrips.
Yep.
For the fighters. And so as soon as the end of the war, after their 4 years over there, he come back and he worked in the CC camp in a forge, trying to put some money away. And then he married my mom, and his brother got married, and they got a car, a one-way trip, headed to Alaska.
And it really was only one way back then, wasn't it?
Yeah. The Elkan was open, come up only. If it was too tough, you weren't allowed to go back. They were trying to get people to move up here.
That was 48, 49-ish?
47.
47.
It was about 48, they opened it up for both ways. But in 47, it was strictly one way only. You weren't allowed to go out.
Was your mom excited about that? As excited as your dad? Seems like a tough decision, a one way.
My mom come right out of the city. My dad was an outdoorsman, come off a farm. How they got together, I don't know. They got up here, they were young kids. The old timers test them. Now they didn't have nothing, absolutely nothing. Their first winter was right up here at Mineral Lakes. They had a white wall tent. It was 60 below all winter, and they had 7 to 9 foot of snow. And they were starving to death. Literally starving to death. There was no wildlife in this country. Dad talked about one moose come through the country. He put his snowshoes on and trailed it for 3 days. They were desperate. Some of the other old timers around there, and these are guys that come up as young men during the gold rush that were retired.
Yep.
So they kind of took a liking to my dad, but they had to test him. My dad and my uncle. And one deal is, Dad said he wanted trapping. So I told him, well, there's a cabin up the Toke River. So it was September, and it was raining and raining and raining. So my dad and my uncle, they hiked in there. There was no cabin. It was a joke these old timers were playing on these 2 young pups, just seeing if they had the mettle to make it. Well, Siwashed out there that night and trying to dry their boots out. They got them too close to the fire,
Oh,
and their boots curled up on them.
oh.
So now they got a 20-mile hike coming out with no boots. But they come out, and all the old timers had a good laugh. And Dad survived it. So he become one of the crowd.
Yep.
You know. So then I was very fortunate. My lifestyle and my parents. So a couple of years later, we moved up the road, up to 71 miles. And this, probably around 55. I was just a little kid. Around the 4th of July, a yellow cab from Fairbanks pulls into the yard like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. The old Mad Trapper, he's in that picture up there.
Which one is he?
Harry Ivan Nielsen. I think he's the shortest guy there. But he had a barrel chest like a Wolverine.
Yeah, he does.
Harry Ivan Nielsen, his name's underneath there. So anyway, he just comes rip roaring drunk, and he comes roaring into the house and just jerks my mom out of bed. Dad's wondering what the hell's going on. My brother and I are wondering what the hell's going on because the old trapper's just screaming at the top of his lungs, whooping and hollering. And the cab driver, he's beyond drunk also. And he sets Mom, we're all tumbling out. They got Mom sitting on the hood of this yellow cab. And the Mad Trapper's pinning a necklace on her. This necklace was beyond anything you can imagine. Every link is a gold nugget. And they're nice nuggets.
Yeah.
And it comes down to the cleavage. Then it goes to smaller nuggets in rectangle, about a 1 inch by 2 inch rectangle. And there's a piece of Kobuck jade. Now the Mad Trapper went over to the Kobuck and got the jade special for this necklace. Then underneath that, in smaller nuggets, was her name. And everybody's, what the hell's this all about? Well, Mom had started a deal right off the get-go. All those old timers in the country, there was no other families. Very, very few families. Finding out their birthdays, but every month she'd have a birthday deal for everybody who had a birthday that month. But it was a get-together for the whole community to come together.
Cool.
And it was always at our house. Nobody had ever done this before. And Mad Trapper's deal, Harry's deal, was it was the first birthday cake he'd ever had in his life.
Aw.
Yeah. And so he worked on the dew line up in the Arctic. And he'd be out there for 5, 6, 7 months at a time, then come in. They usually just went to the bar, you know. Well, he went and got all this gold and then the jade, and had this necklace made as
Oh.
a thank you, you know.
Oh.
And that was one of the first deals of the people. And it just, people migrated to us more and more every year to my folks. My folks were nothing exceptional. You know, they had no money. But every trucker that went through, the bus driver, when he'd come through once a week going to Whitehorse, he stopped at our house to see if we needed anything.
Oh, cool.
You know,
and that wasn't the lodge. This was before the lodge.
right? Yeah, this
The
is
first
way
where
before the
you
lodge.
grew up,
Yeah,
or your younger years.
this is back in the 50s.
Okay.
Yeah. So, a little later, I realized there's such a thing as girls, but there was no girls.
Sure.
You know, it wasn't until I got into school I realized that, shit, there's something different. They might be fun to play with. And I always said, there's a lot of stars out there that we can see. We can't be the only dumb son of a bitch out here. You know, and now I've done a lot of studying, and I'm a very avid watcher of that Ancient Aliens.
Yep.
And all these monuments and pyramids and structures all around the world. Mankind didn't build that shit. No. And then I've read some books about archdeacons, spent 38 years interpreting the Bible. They're starting to look at it different.
Yep.
Interplanetary travel. And there's good worlds out there, and there's bad worlds. And I think I'm seeing more and more and more of it. And I'm connecting more and more dots the older I get. I think they had the War of the Worlds. Two different planets fighting over us. One was trying to make slaves out of us, and the other one was, well, let's see just how bad they can things up, you know. And I think there was like a nuclear explosion because, okay, supposedly we had the big flood. A big flood is not a wave action. Water rises and drains out. That's a flood. I've worked on a lot of roads all around the state. And we're going down one side of a valley. Yeah, you got 2 foot, 3 foot of overburden. Shot rock. On our weekends, our day off on Sunday, when you work in construction, you're a whore to the pimp. You go where the work is. And like up out of Fairbanks, there's live and good country and what have you, in Chattanooga, and I worked up in that country. And these miners are hydraulicing, and there's 200 foot of overburden. And they're hydraulicing, and you can see the Mastodons. They're standing upright. You can see them. They're coming out of that 250 foot of overburden. And I always question, why? We're working on this side of the valley. We got 2 to 3 foot. that side of the valley has 200 foot. And so I've talked to a couple geologists. Well, it's sediment, Doug. Well, sediment's carried down. Water does not divide sediment and take it from one side and dump it on the other side. Come on, it cuts a deeper channel. So then in 95, I got a call to go up to General Foreman at the Fort Knox mine. Now, I'd done a lot of dirt work. I lucked out and was on one of the best crews the state of Alaska ever seen or ever will see. Nobody will even compare anymore. And I went up there for an outfit, all the biggest, baddest, brand new equipment you could. We're not used to this shit. We're used to shit that you gotta hobble together, go through 14 steps to get it to fire, and then you start pouring the oil to it, and you go out and do a day's work. We're used to operating junk and taking pride in it. Well, I'm in charge of building the tailings dam. There's two big dams. They're about 3 miles apart. There's a freshwater dam down below. I got the left side of the valley and the valley floor. And I got 3-4 foot of overburden. I got the biggest, baddest scrapers known to mankind. I got D11 dozers. I got all the big, bad shit. And I'm stripping away. Over the other side of the valley, we got those 777 ore trucks, big mine ore trucks, and the big excavators, the big ones. You've seen those big ore trucks. Yeah, they're big.
Yep.
They're taking out over 200 foot of overburden. Down the valley, it goes to about 250 foot. Okay. With this equipment, we move a lot of yardage. It's just the same outfit doing this mine right up here right now, and same equipment. Well, when they got down towards the bottom of that overburden, then they turned it over to me to do the final cleanup with my scraper spread. We stripped off the last of that overburden and hit that gravel layer. Oh my God. It was mountains of Mastodons, Sabertooths, prehistoric buffaloes, all that shit. And it was piled up deep. I've seen tusks that wrap around a blade of a D11.
Whoa.
Yeah. Somewhere I got a picture. I'm standing in the back of my pickup with my hands above my head, holding a tusk that's broken. And it's touching the ground on both sides of my pickup. And I'm reaching up, holding. This is a broken piece. But it's all okay. Either a humongous wave action that stripped everything off this hill and put it at the base of that hill. Well, what would create a wave action like that? Nuclear explosion. The only thing it could be. Now they're starting to determine those big deals over in Russia and what have you. They're still radioactive. But they're finding these areas before they started recording. And now they're going in and testing them They're radioactive. They did have a nuclear explosion there. So now I'm putting together War of the Worlds.
Yep.
And I don't care where you go in this state, all that prehistoric stuff, it wasn't an asteroid hitting down there by Cancun. It was a nuclear explosion from the boys from different planets.
Yep.
You know,